Hello everyone, in this chapter we are going to study about databases. Till now we haven't completed backend, but what we will do is that we will study a little bit about databases, and after getting a nuanced idea about database we will go into backend and we will continue our backend journey, and later in the upcoming next 2 or 3 lectures we will add backend with our databases. So in this chapter what we are gonna do is that we will study about a database called as MySQL, and to perform operations on this particular database we study a language called as SQL. So here database, MySQL is a database, and to interact with this database we will learn a language, we will learn an intermediary language called as SQL. So before we go into what is database, what is MySQL, what is SQL, let us understand why we have introduced the concept of databases. So in previous days back in 2000 and 1998 time, we were not having computers. So back then what firms used to do is that they used to maintain physical copy of each and every customer. For example, let's say we have a bank, right? To store the data of customers, what we used to do is we used to store data in the form of files, in the form of documents. Then later we got introduced by computers, and instead of storing data in physical files, we have changed our storing systems into files. We started using normal txt files, and in that txt files we used to store data of customers. But what is the problem with files was that, let's say I'm having a million users or I'm having a billion users, then just imagine storing the data of a million customers in normal txt form, in normal files form. That file can be a JSON file, that file can be a text file, whatever the file might be. If I am storing the data of my customers in file format, and let's say among this million users I want to retrieve the data of one user, then we have to perform a lot of operations, and it is not an efficient way to store data. That is why we have introduced the concept of databases. Using database we can store large amount of data, right? We can store large amount of data. And if you want to imagine what is a database, I will give you a perfect example. Imagine a gold shop, right? In gold shop what we do, in jewelry shop what we do, we'll go into the shop, we'll buy gold, we'll sell gold. Like this, database is a place where we can store our data, where we can perform operations. It can be addition operation, it can be a deletion operation, it can be a updation operation, whatever the operation. The thing you need to imagine here is database is a place in which we can interact with data, we can store data. All the transactions related to data happens in the database, right? So here the simple definition of database is a place where we store data, and it gives us a power. Let's say I'm having a million users, I'm having a billion users, whatever the number might be, we can perform easily any operations on that database. When compared to files are very inefficient. If you are storing your customers data, your company's data in the form of files, then it is very inefficient. Your computer will take a lot of time to perform operations on that when compared to normal databases. Okay, so I hope you have understood. Database is a place where we can perform operations, where we can store data. Exchange of information or exchange of data happens in a place, and that place is database. And the database which we are going to use in this chapter, we are going to study in this chapter, is MySQL. Right? MySQL is a database, a place where we can store data, right? Our data. And to interact with this database we will learn a language, an intermediary language called as SQL. SQL is a query language, right, which is used to interact with our development and with our database. Let's say in the development side you are creating something, so interact to get data from that particular development side and to store that data into the database. Here SQL will act as an intermediary. Okay, so here I hope you have understood what is the meaning of database, what is MySQL, what is SQL. SQL is a query language, MySQL is a actual database, a place where we store data. Okay, now what are the advantages of database? I have told you, we can store millions of data, like millions of large files. We can store large data. Second one is security and scalability. For example, let's say in your platform right now you are having 1,000 users. In the future your platform will grow into a million users like platform, then and also your database will work smoothly irrespective of any restrictions. Databases has a feature, when the amount of users increases, it has a ability to scale in itself, right? This is the second feature. And third feature is, when compared to normal files, we can perform operations in a very easy way, like adding data, inserting data, or updating, deletion. All these things will happen in a fraction of seconds when compared to normal files. Let's say in normal files I am having files like this, file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4, something like this, and I want to perform some operations on the 100th file. Then I have to iterate all these files, go to the 100th file and perform operations on that particular file. So this is a very lengthy and inefficient process. But in databases we will have some queries. By just writing one line, we can perform operations on a millionth file, on a millionth data set, whatever it might be. We can do anything easily. We can change, manipulate data in a very easy format using the concept of databases. Okay, so as I told you, in this chapter we are gonna study a database, and that database is MySQL, and to interact with that database we will learn a language called as SQL in this chapter. In this session, we will focus on very basic commands. We will understand how we can visualize data. In the next chapter of SQL, we will go into the depths of SQL. Okay, I hope you are clear. And there is one more thing. If you understand the concept of database, okay, I hope you are clear and you have understood MySQL and SQL. So there is one more concept called as DBMS. DBMS. The full form of DBMS is Database Management System. You can imagine DBMS as an external layer. If you imagine database as a block, then on that block, on that space, we will have an external layer called as DBMS. And this DBMS ensures that whatever the operations you are performing on that database, that operations should get performed in a very smooth and clear manner, in a simple manner. So this is the only work of DBMS, right? So I will repeat again everything. Database is a place where we perform operations on data, where we can store data. SQL is a query language which is used to interact with a database, and that database in this chapter is going to be MySQL. So it is really important to understand the difference between MySQL and SQL. SQL is a query language, it is a language, it is a programming language, and MySQL is a database. Okay, clear. So we have understood what is database, what is MySQL, what is SQL, and DBMS is the external layer which smoothens the incoming operations. For example, let's say this is my database, and in that database I am giving some commands. I am giving insertion command, I am giving deletion command, I am giving updation command. So what this DBMS will do is that it will like sort it out all the incoming operations, and it will smoothen the interaction with the database. This is the only work of DBMS. DBMS is an external layer which smoothens the incoming request and outgoing request with respect to database. Okay, we have understood what is database, what is MySQL, what is SQL, and what is DBMS. Now in this chapter, the thing you need to understand here is database is a very huge concept. You might have seen they are 10-hour videos, 12-hour videos of databases. So in this chapter, whatever the backend databases we are going to study, we will only focus on the things which are important with respect to development process. Like whatever the things which is really important with respect to in reference of development, we will only study them. Let us understand a simple concept called as SQL and NoSQL. What is the difference between these two? So as I told you that in this chapter we will study a database, and that database is MySQL, and to interact with this database we have to learn a language, and that language is SQL. So SQL will act as an intermediary. Let's say this is your code, whatever the code you are developing on the development side, on the front end back end side, and this is your SQL and this is your database. So what SQL will do is that it will act as an intermediary, right? So here you will give commands from your development side, you will give commands to SQL. SQL will understand whatever the operations you want to perform on the database, so it will give that operations to the database, and database will update accordingly. So here SQL is a intermediary language, and they are mainly two types of databases. You have to understand it. In the tech field we are having two types of database. First one is SQL based, or you can say relational databases, right? Relational databases are the database which stores the data in the form of tables. If I am storing the data in the form of tables, then we call that database as relational database, and in that, to interact with a relational database we use a language, and that language is SQL. And what are the example of relational database? I have told you MySQL is a relational database, right? So here in this MySQL we will store the data in the form of tables, in the form of rows and columns. Now another example is PostSQL. PostSQL is also a perfect example, and another one is Oracle. These are the three popular relational databases that we are having in the market right now, right? And to interact with these databases, all we have to do is that we have to understand SQL. By understanding or learning the concept of SQL, we can interact with these databases. Okay, and there might be a little minute changes when we change from one database to another database, but the query statements, overall syntax of the language is going to be the same. Okay, so SQL is a language which is used to interact with relational databases, and the relational databases are the databases which stores the data in the form of tables, in the form of rows and columns. Example of relational databases are MySQL, PostSQL and Oracle. Okay, now NoSQL are the languages which is used to interact with non-relational database. And the meaning of non-relational databases are, let's say I am storing data in other formats but not in the form of table, then that form of database is known as non-relational databases. And we can store data in the form of graphs, we can store data in the form of documents, in the form of linked list. Like this we can store data in different formats, but we are not storing, in this case we are not storing our data in the form of tables. This is the meaning of non-relational database, and the example of non-relational database is MongoDB, Cassandra, right? And there is another database called as GraphQL, something like that. Like this we are having different databases, and we are going to begin our understanding of database with MySQL. And after studying MySQL, we will integrate our MySQL with Node, and we will see how we can interact our backend code with our database. Before we go into SQL, let us see how we can download MySQL in our computer. So here what I'm gonna do is that in the Chrome browser I will go to MySQL download. You will get the website of this mysql.com. Here you will see an option, you can see there is an option called as MySQL Community GPL download. So click on download and go down, you will see MySQL installer for Windows. Click on it, and this is the second option, like the option which is having 352 MB. Click on it. your download process will begin. Just no thanks, just start my download, and you can see your download processes has started. So it might take few minutes based on your internet connection, but yeah. Now after completing download, click on the application. You will get the application here. Yes, and your installation process will start. I will provide you the link of installation of MySQL Workbench. By just clicking on the link, you will understand how the download process will work. So here you will get the interface something like this. You will be having server only, client only option. We will click on full and click next. Next, just say next and execute. The download processes will begin here. So after downloading all this, click next and next, just click next, and here we need to give our password. Like if you are a new user, then you have to create a password, and remember this password is going to be like important whenever you log in into your Workbench, MySQL Workbench. You can create a new server using the password only. So if you forget your password, then I don't think so like you can access your server. So to create a new server, to access the existing servers in our MySQL Workbench, we have to remember this password. So here I will write my password. Okay, just check. Okay, we'll check. Yeah, click on next and next. Again some downloading processes, it might take some time, and finish. So here you can see my whole process got finished. Here I need to give root password. Remember you have to remember this password, because to create our connection with our MySQL server, this password is needed, right? So click on next and next, execute. You can see I'll be having my MySQL Workbench. So this is our MySQL Workbench, and this is the place where we can create our MySQL server. Right here you will be having some default like local instance, and this is the one which I have just recently created. If you want to create a new thing, then you will click on this and you will give the connection name. Let's say my connection name is SQL class. SQL class is my connection name. So here I will click on test connection, and you will check whether my connection is secure or not, and okay, click on OK. You will be having a new server, and the local host, or you can say the URL of that server is 127.0. something like that. Now just click on that server, you will be redirected to this page. So this is the page where you write your SQL commands. Here you will be having different options like different options like query, and if I select here, you can see your file data. You can like click on file, new model, edit file, all this sort of things, server tools, scripting, all this. And here this is the place, the blank place where we are our cursor is right now. This is the place where we write our SQL commands. Okay, and one more thing is that if you want to execute all the SQL commands, then you will click this button. Let me zoom it. I don't think so we can zoom it, but yeah, by just clicking this button, this thunder button, you will execute all the SQL commands. If you want to execute a specific SQL command, then you will select that command and click this button, and that command, whatever the commands you have selected now, those commands will get executed, right? And if you want to see the output, then you can see the output here. Okay, and this is the setting preference. You can customize your dashboard if you want, and you can see I'm having a relational database, all this sort of things, SQL. Yeah, this is the overall our place where we write our SQL. Now we have seen how we can download SQL in our computer. What is NoSQL, SQL? So here SQL is a programming language which is used to interact with a relational database, and in this case our relational database is MySQL. Okay, now I have told you, right, MySQL is basically a relational database, and the language which we are gonna use is SQL. And one more thing is we visualize or we represent our data in the form of rows and columns, in the form of tables. So this is how we will visualize a particular table. In a table, let me show you in the form of Excel. So here I will open Excel, and let's say in the Excel I am opening a new blank page. So here I will create a table. Let's say the table name is superhero, and in this I will be having, in the first column I will store the name of the superhero, after the age, his quality or superpower, and IQ. I will store his IQ here. So IQ. Like this I can create my very own table. In the example also, this is the representation of a table, and in a table will have rows and columns. Each row represents the individual data point. So this row 1 will represent one data point, this row 2 will represent another data point. Like this, each row represents individual data point, and column represents the data of that particular whole column. For example, in the first column, if I am writing ID, then it is given that in this whole column I will store the IDs only. Right? In the second column, if I am storing the name, then it is given that I will store in this whole column, I will store the names of each and every data point. So here column represents what type of data I am going to store in this whole vertical column, right? And in rows it represents each and every quality of that particular data point. For example, if you observe data point 1 is having a number, you can say ID, name and email, followers and following. In the table which we have created here, you can see let me zoom it. Okay, so here my table name is superhero, and in the first column I am storing the names of the superhero, in the second column I am storing their ages, in the third column I am storing superpower, in the fourth column I am storing the IQ of that superhero. Here I can fill the data, let's say Batman and Superman, and their age is 24, 20, superpower is tech, alien, IQ is 240, IQ is 120. Like this I can store the data. Vertical column represents what type of data I am going to store. If I am writing name, then it is given that in the whole column I will store only names, right? And rows represents the data points. Okay, in this row 1 I am going to store the name of that particular data, age, superhero, superpower, IQ, all this sort of things. A row represents the data points, column represents the type of data I am going to store. And this is the representation of a table. In this format only we are going to store our data. Now the next concept we are going to do is we will create our very own first database. So here, to create database in MySQL, we have to follow a set of commands. Let's say I will create this superhero. Let me zoom it out. So here, let's say I want to create this table in my database. So to create that table, what I'm going to do is that I will open my Workbench. In the Workbench, first of all, I have to create my database. So to create my database, I have to write create database, and you can write it capital or small, it doesn't matter. It is not case sensitive. So here, create database. Let's say my database name is superhero. So here I will write superheroes, or I will write superhero. So superhero, just click on it, and to execute a single command, what I have told you, we will select that particular line and we will execute it. You will see in the output screen, I am having a tick symbol, a green tick symbol, and time, on which time I have executed the command, and you can see the action performed is create database superhero. So I have created a database called as superhero. Now if I want to use this database now, then I will use a command called as use database. Here which command I have to use database, and I have to give the database name. So here I will write superhero. hero. Now I will select these two commands and I will execute it. Okay, it is showing. Okay, so here if I want to create, so it is showing some sort of error because I have already created a database called as superhero, so I don't need to create it again. Now I will just execute the first command. You will see I'll be having like right now I'm using my superhero database. In that database I can create multiple tables, right? Like this I will use my database. If I want to drop my database now, then I will first of all remove this command. I will write drop and I will write the database, what database I want to drop, I want to delete. So here I will write superhero and just select the command, execute it. It is showing here, write drop database. I need to write drop drop database, and superhero is my database name. Now select it, execute this first command. You will see in the command screen I am getting output as the database has dropped. Like this we can create our database. If I want to use that particular database now, then I will write command use and that particular database name. If I want to delete it, then I will write drop and I will write drop database, that particular database name. Like this we can create our own commands. Now the thing you need to remember here is in a particular database, if you imagine this Excel sheet as a database, then in that database we can have multiple tables. For example, let's say the sheet name one is, let's say the sheet name is superheroes. I am storing superheroes, and here in the table 1, let's say I wanna only store male superheroes. So here I can create a table only for male superheroes. Okay, now if I want to create a table only for female heroes, then I can do that. So here I will write female superheroes. In this I will write the name as it is, name, age, and superpower, IQ. Here I will write IQ. Now the name can be Wanda, age is 30, superpower is magic, and IQ is 120 something, and Scarlett Johansson, like Natasha, age is 35, and magic power is spy is her superpower, and IQ is she's intelligent, so 180. Okay, like this we can create in a single, if you imagine this Excel sheet, this sheet 1 as a database, then in that database we can have multiple tables. Now the thing you need to remember here is, in a database you can have multiple tables, but those tables should be interlinked with one another, right? You should always create tables in such a format that one table should have some connection with one another table, right? For example, let's say I am creating another table called as student. So it is given that students will not have any connections with superheroes. So what's the need of that data table? That is why you should not create tables which are not interlinked with one another, right? So here I will delete student, I will not create student. Now if I am creating a database for college management system, then I can create a new database, a new sheet. In this sheet I will give the sheet name as college, and in this I will store, let's say, student data and teacher data. Like this, in this you can see student table will have some connection with teacher table, right? So whenever you are creating databases, make sure that tables should be interlinked with one another. So here I will create a database, create database superhero. Okay, now I will execute this command. My database has created. After creating database, I will use this database. So here I will write use superhero. Use this command, and you can see in the output screen I am having output as using superhero table. Now we have seen how we can create, drop and use the a particular database. Now in this database, how we can create our table, how we can create our superhero, male superhero table, female superhero table. So to understand that, let us go to our SQL commands. The next command is creating our very own table. So to create our own table, we have to write create table and table name. In this case, our table name is male superhero, and in that I am having name, the data type, and I will give some constraints. So here, let's say I am creating my table. So here I will write create table. Table name is male superhero. So male superhero, and in that what I'm gonna do is that I will create. Let me remove this. I'm already using it, so I don't need to give here. So here I will write, let's say, name, and name should be a string. So in SQL we have a data type called as varchar to store characters. Here I can give characters, or the new updated version is varchar. So here I will give varchar, let's say 20, and along with it, if I want to give some conditions, okay, the name should not be a Marvel character, or the name should not be Iron Man. Like if I don't want Iron Man in my case, then I will give some constraints here. We will talk about constraints in few minutes, but yeah, like this we will declare the columns of each and every table. And here also I can give like age, right? So here age, and age is going to be an integer, so I will give int. After that, superpower is again going to be a varchar of 20, and after this I will give some other thing, superpower, and IQ is going to be an integer as well. Like this we create our databases in our SQL, right? Our tables in our SQL. Now if I execute it now, you will see create the table, and in that table I am having the first column is name, the second column is age, third column is superhero, fourth column is IQ, and the data type of first column is varchar. It is going to be a string. Next one is integer, again string, again integer. We have understood how we can create our database, how we can create our table. There are some concepts called as database queries. So here the first command is, if I want to create a database, then I will write create database name. If that database already exists, and if I don't want to create, or you can say create an error in my database, then I will write a constraint, and that constraint is, if that database already exists, like if that database doesn't exist, then and only I will create this. Then I will write this line, and to drop this we will show the data, like we'll write this line. If we have already dropped the table, then we will write the second command. Now if I, in the SQL Workbench, if I want to see what tables I am having in this database, how many databases I am having, so for that I will write show tables. So this single command will tell me how many tables I am having. So here you can see I am having a table called a superhero, male superhero, and if I write show databases, so it will tell me how many databases I am having. Databases, if I execute this line, then it will tell me I am having information schema, MySQL, Salika, whatever, but this is the database which I have created, superhero database. Just now we have seen how we can create a table. We have created a table, to be specific, here you can see we have created our very own table with name, varchar, all these sort of things. Okay, now they are database data types which we have to understand. So we have studied Java, right? In Java we have talked about different database. Like that in SQL also we are having different database types, and these data types are used to store different data values, right? For example, if I want to store characters, then I will write char. And there is a newer updated version to store large lengths. we use varchar. Varchar is an updated version of character. And what is the difference between char and varchar is varchar is more dynamic. For example, let's say I am creating a varchar of 20 size. So what it will do is that in that varchar I am storing only 4 characters. Then varchar will create an array of 4 characters. But in char, if I am creating a size of 20 array, then in the memory I have to create an array of 20 size. So here char is more static, varchar is dynamic. That is why in most of the cases we will use varchar. And the next data type is int. Int is going to store number from -2 billion to 2 billion integer values. It will not store any decimal values. Now the next one is tiny int. Tiny int will store some lower values from -128 to 128. After that big int will store data from 9 billion to +9 billion, and bitint will store bit values. Float will store decimal values. If I want to store large decimal values, then I will use double. If I want to store whether one thing is true or false, then I will use boolean. If I want to use date or year, then I will use date and year data types. This many data types I am having in my SQL. Now how we can before we go into how we can insert our data into the tables, there are some constraints I have talked about. You can see here I am having some constraints. So constraints are the conditions. For example, if I am writing a superhero name and if someone is writing null, then I don't want that. Let's say I am creating a table for students, and each student will have a roll number. If someone is writing I don't have a roll number, then it is an error, right? I don't want that type of thing in my tables. So to constrain, to make conditions, we use constraints, right? And this many constraints I'm having. So in a column, if I don't want any none value, like for example in the table here you can see I'm having, let me remove this. How we can remove this? Okay, let me remove this. Okay, so in the table, if I want my user to give me each and every superhero name, let's say I am creating 3 data points. First superhero name is Batman, second superhero name is Superman, and third superhero name I am leaving it null. I don't want that. I want in each and every row there should be a fixed superhero name. So for that what I can do is that I will write not null. So this will create a constraint that okay, in this table, in this column, all the rows should have some values. I cannot, let's say I'm giving the name superhero name as 24, and here I'm giving some random data and giving the IQ as 180. Now you will see that I'm leaving the name of the superhero blank. I don't want that. So to create this condition I will use not null. And if I want this particular column to be unique, for example, if I am writing Batman 2 times, I don't want that. I don't want in a particular row the superhero name to be repeated. So for that I will write unique. So here I will write, in the place of not null, I will write unique. So this will create all my superhero unique. It means that in a particular column I cannot write Batman 2 times. So this is another type of constraints. And the next constraint we are having is default. Okay, if someone is not giving a superhero name, then I want to set a default value as Jabir. Then I can write default. Here I will write default name is equals to, I will write some random name. Let's say Jabir is my random name. I will give something like that. So if a user is not giving me name, then I will give the default value of that particular row as Jabir. Now the next one is check. Okay, if user is giving IQ as 2000, then there is no IQ as 2000, right? So I will create a condition that check if the age or IQ is greater than 2000, greater than 2000, then give him an error. Like this we can create constraints while creating the column values. Now let us understand how we can insert. After creating table, to insert our data into the table, so I will write insert into table name. Superhero is my table name, right? So here I will write male superhero, so male superhero, and here insert into table, and we have to give the column names. Okay, the first column name is name comma age comma superpower, so superpower comma IQ. Now for this particular column values, I will give values as, let's say I'm giving values as Batman comma 24 age comma superpower is tech comma, okay, here comma age IQ is 240. So here I'm giving IQ as 240. Now this is how we will insert a particular row into our table. Now if I want to insert another table, then I will write insert into male superhero. Here I will write name comma age comma superhero. I will write the column names superpower comma IQ, and the values are Superman comma, here I need to give Superman comma 20 comma alien comma 120. So like this I can insert my values into the table, whatever the table I have created. Like this I can insert it. Now if I want to select all the rows and columns, then I will write select star from male superhero. This is another command to select our tables. To select all the tables we will use this command. Now you will see I am having insert into superhero alien. To select, to show all the things which we have inserted into our database, into our table, we use a command called as select star from table name. So here I will give select star from male superhero is my table name. So here I will write superhero. Now run this. I will run the old command here. You will see when I run select command, I'm having like Batman data, Superman data. Like this I can see each and every table data. So this is about basic SQL command. And one more thing is that there is a concept called as, talking about constraints, there is a concept called as primary key and foreign key. So this will be the last thing we'll study, and we'll continue in the next lecture. So primary key, let's say imagine a scenario where I'm storing the data of students. So here in this case it is given that the roll numbers of each and every student is unique, it doesn't replicate. So in this case, in the column, if all the values are unique, then we call that, and not null, it should not be null at the same time. So then we call that type of column as a primary key, right? So I hope I have, okay. And foreign key is a type of constraints. For example, let's say a teacher is trying to access the data of a student using the primary key. Here let me show you an example as well. I will write it out. So let me write it out here. Let's say I'm having a student table. In the student table I'm having age and roll number and name. So this is a student table, and here in the teacher table I am having student roll number and teacher name, teacher age. I am having this thing in a teacher's table. Okay, got it. Now in this table here, the unique, you can see that each and every student will have a unique roll number, and that roll number is not null. So this particular column will become my primary key. And if I am using this particular column in another table, then this particular column, the column which is acting as a primary key of another table. Here you can see in student table, this particular column is a primary key, and I'm using that particular column in another table. Then we call this column as foreign key. So we will see what is primary key, how we can use it, foreign key. These are important, right, in the next lecture. So I hope you have understood what is databases, how SQL works, how we can download SQL and create database, create tables, perform simple insertion and deletion selection operations. So with that being said, I will see you in the SQL part 2.